So we're talking about ADHD chatter today, which is really interesting because, what that title means, like the word chatter can mean different things to different people. Chatter, one person, it could feel like anxiety. One person could really just be this like kind of annoying chatter. Another person, it might be intrusive thoughts. And so this was a really interesting topic to look at, and to talk about. And so I think it's going to be a really neat call. So the first thing I want to do is I want to read from other people of what chatter is like for them, in thinking that you may be able to relate to this. So we'll have more people than just me. And so for some people, it's this internal voice that doesn't quiet. And it might even, if you've had that, recite phrases over and over again sometimes where you feel kind of sick. It's like over and over again, or music, or jingles, or just things you've heard in commercials, accents, could be rhythms, notes, just kind of noises. And for this person, it's like a radio tuned to the most worst like possible station. So it's really annoying, or and it just loops endlessly. So that's how this person experiences it, from our community. Another person, for them, it's like everything's narrated, like they're in a person, point of view book. It's an inner dialogue with themselves as well as another voice thinking about food. What do we? Okay, dinosaurs. We're gonna go to the next thing, and it could be completely irrelevant, and it just doesn't stop. And it just kind of keeps going. They said it's like the front page of Reddit. So that person, and then another person had an interesting thought. They said for them, it was like a coping mechanism for auditory learners. So because, in order for them to process it, they repeat it over and over again in their brains. And then it kind of helps them process to make sense of things. And they kind of get lost in it, and it actually can be helpful. Another person, it's, their insomnia, and they listen to, certain things and they try to tune it out. Another person, intrusive thoughts. I'm going to bring that up today because I think that's something I haven't talked about, and it's really important to define intrusive thoughts and what that feels like. Yeah, I mean, it's just a little bit for different people. Some people hear voices, so it can look like a lot of different things for you, depending on what that is. It could be rumination. So that's just a couple things. It doesn't explain all of them. And I want to go into the agenda for today is I want to talk about like ADHD specific reasons for this chat. Like what is this internal chatter that's going on in our brains, and then also some things that are related to ADHD, but not necessarily that cause chatter, but not necessarily like the ADHD specific. And so I'll talk about that. And then also I'll talk about the difference of intrusive thoughts versus negative thoughts or unwanted thoughts. If you have intrusive thoughts and you don't know that's what they are, you can feel crazy. And so I have those. That's part of my OCD diagnosis. And so I want to talk about the difference between the two. And then we're going to talk about ways to calm it, and what that looks like. So that's the agenda for today. And then we'll have our Q&A. So what are the ADHD specific reasons for it? So first off, if you have the inattentive type, you're sometimes more likely or more reported to have this internal chatter that doesn't quiet. So the hyperactive type, there's 3 types of ADHD. The hyperactive type is going to be, kind of that stereotypical one where you see somebody fidgeting, moving, clicking their pen, can't sit still. The hyperactive boy in school, that's the one that gets a lot of attention or understanding. The inattentive type really doesn't. And it shows up a little bit more in women. Not necessarily all women have that, right? There are hyperactive women, there's inattentive men. But the inattentive type is like this, take all the outside energy that's happening in the hyperactive type, and that's going to go inward. So on the outside, it looks really calm. You don't look restless. You might even come across as really calm, but there's this internal chatter that does not quiet. It doesn't stop. And it's all that outside energy is on the inside, and it can look like anxiety. It can be depression. It can get misdiagnosed as a lot of things. And can be so often missed. And so the inattentive, both, and then the third type is a combination of both, which over 75% of us have a mix of both. That's actually most common, is to have a combination. So the inattentive type is more likely to have that internal chatter, but all of us can absolutely have it. So that's one ADHD specific reason. And part of this is linked to lower levels of norepinephrine and certain neurochemicals that with ADHD studies show over and over again that we have a different surplus or lack of certain chemicals in our brain, which, you know, a lack of dopamine, for example, is why we can get really calm in stress and chaos, because our dopamine balances out where other people it spikes and it's too much. So there is an advantage to the neurochemicals and how they work. And sometimes it leads us to ruminate or to have less dopamine or norepinephrine. So it's really related to the brain chemistry if we're talking about the ADHD specific reason. Another thing with neurodivergence, and this is autism, this is OCD, this is ADHD, this is anxiety, PTSD, specifically ADHD and autism, rumination is normal. So rumination is when you think about the same thing over and over and over again to the point where it's not helpful. That can be normal. So I just want to throw that out there. Another reason for this internal chatter, and not everybody it's bad or they don't like it. It could be stimming. So stimming is a way because our brains are a lot of times understimulated. We're understimulated. And so by repeating a song over and over again or having rumination that doesn't feel good, that creates endorphins, that creates dopamine, it actually stimulates our brain. And so that internal chatter could actually be your brain trying to regulate itself. It's actually trying to help you versus being something not great or, you know, like that. So rumination, thinking about the same thing over and over again, very normal as a neurodivergent person. And it actually can form purpose. So like stimming, another example for, I mean, there's a lot of different types of stimming. So that's one, thinking of the same thing over and over again. You know, there's all kinds of stimming. I mean, you see hand flapping, that one's a little bit more well-known, a little bit more sometimes for people on the spectrum is what it's known for. But we're all under this neurodivergence umbrella. And stimming could also be, have you ever had a song that you just listen to over and over and over and over again? It's like the same album, you know, it can be a form of stimming or something that you looked at for hours and hours, or a special interest you're pursuing, or just repeated phrases over and over again. So those could be like your comfort things that you go to. And so that's stimming. And it can soothe our brain. And so you see it a little bit more pronounced for those who are on the autism spectrum. Just especially in media and stuff, is it's actually self-soothing and it calms anxiety and it stimulates our brain, and it's also predictable. So the other thing to remember is that a neurodivergent brain picks up way more stimulus than someone who doesn't have like ADHD or autism. And that's why change can be harder for us, because it's not just, you know, let's say you're going on a trip and you're going to go to a new hotel. It's not just, oh, a different bed, different pillow. We pick up on sometimes the fabric of the sheets and the smell and the temperature and like the shower and how things work and like the fridge, and it's just like and the sound of the alarm clock and the sound outside. So we're picking up all this other stimulus. So it's not just these small changes, sometimes it's bigger changes. And so having familiar things or movies or TV or songs actually can be soothing because it gives us a little bit of predictability when we're taking in so much extra stimulus compared to someone without ADHD. And then, so yeah, so the brain is understimulated. It might be helping you regulate. And then here are some other things that are related that can cause ADHD chatter, but they're not necessarily specific. So anxiety, very common. Anxiety and depression are very common when you have ADHD. 2/3 of people with ADHD have a co-occurring like mental health diagnosis. And then hormones, that's another thing. Your thyroid, there's a link between hypothyroidism and hormones. So I'm on hormone therapy. And even if I take testosterone every week, and if I've gone, you know, if I've missed my shot, my rumination, my chatter gets way louder. So if you haven't had your hormones checked and you feel like it's getting worse, that's a really good thing to look at. Nutritional deficiencies, we are, as a demographic, much lower in vitamin D. I've heard so many people with ADHD that are low in vitamin D, low in folate. So if you can get a nutritional panel, if you haven't done that in a long time, that can be helpful too. And then candida. This is kind of an interesting one. So we all have fungus in our body. And genetically, you may have more or an overgrowth. One of the things that calmed my ADHD chatter more than a lot of things was actually getting like a gut health test and figuring out I had an overgrowth of candida and what were the certain like probiotics that you need to do to kind of heal that after being on antibiotics. And so this just, I'm throwing all this stuff out there because there's a lot of stuff you can do. And if you have a ton of chatter, it doesn't mean it's going to be like this forever. It doesn't mean it's permanent. And it is a good thing to address it as a whole versus it's just ADHD. We want to eliminate everything else. So what's left is your baseline. And then you'll know, okay, this is my baseline. This is just how it is. And then you can go accordingly. So the other thing I want to talk about, this is where I want to get to the intrusive thoughts versus unwelcome thoughts. So some people, and I know before I had a name for it, it was very scary. So intrusive thoughts are different than negative thoughts. Intrusive thoughts are things that are typically in like direct opposition of what you actually think and feel, and they actually can scare you and you might feel crazy. So an example of an intrusive thought, and this is where it's like more severe, and this is more common in OCD, where you could be the kindest, most gentle person that's never hurt anyone, nothing, and yet you're scared to cut something with a knife because you're scared you're going to slip and hit somebody, you know? Or like you're driving and you have these thoughts of running into a tree. This is one I've heard common, so I just want to put it out there. You have this thought of driving into a tree, but the thought is not from you, and it scares you because that's not what you actually want, and you keep having it over and over again. But it's a direct, opposition of what you actually want. Those are intrusive thoughts. So it's not, a negative thought isn't, driving off the bridge or into traffic. Yes. And I want to bring this up because I don't think we talk about it. People don't, who's going to post about this, right? And I want you to know that it's normal and you're not crazy. And that if it's in direct opposition to actually who you are or what you want, it doesn't mean you're going to do that thing. It's probably an intrusive thought, intrusive being the word. Whereas a negative thought is going to be something that doesn't feel good, but it's not going to freak you out like that, where you feel crazy. It might be like low self-esteem, or it might be, like, oh man, I got rejected, or they don't like me or something. Like those suck, right? And those don't feel good. An intrusive thought is going to be more on the extreme side, and it might even be something you're scared to tell someone about. Okay, this is great, right? A dog. These are so okay. I'm so glad we're talking about this because I thought it was crazy. So someone petting a dog, and they thought, well, what if I, chuck the dog across the room and hurt the dog? And you might have it over and over again, but it's something we'd never do. So those intrusive thoughts are more common with neurodivergence, and nobody's talking about it. So that's why I want to talk about it. And again, I'll talk to you in a second about how to calm things because that's in there. So intrusive thoughts, you could have those. So some of these might be tied to different diagnoses as well. You could have OCD, like I have OCD. You could have PTSD. I have that as well. I have ADHD. I'm on the autism spectrum. You could have a collection of letters. You could have a personality disorder. If you have borderline personality disorder, you can have these really terrible thoughts that like you're unlovable or abandonment. You can have those. And you can have those without borderline too. So don't use any of this as diagnostic. I just want to validate anyone out there. PTSD, that you can have internal chatter where there's just noise in the background. That's normal, and you might not even know that's what it is. If you're on the autism spectrum, it's common to have rumination. Intrusive thoughts can be common there too. If you have substance abuse stuff, you're staying there's so many things, trauma. So there's a lot of things that can calm the chatter. And so if you can, kind of sitting with it and kind of figuring out which is which a little bit, kind of playing with it, and just then you can get stuff in place for the stuff you can change. And then for the stuff you can't change or, isn't a nutritional deficiency, or isn't a thyroid or hormone issue, or isn't, some kind of diagnosis that you need, then there are things that you can do to calm those. So some of the ways to calm this, I want to talk about meditation for a second. Some people really find a lot of value in meditation. There are some people, there are people with ADHD who really do well with that. There are other people, I'm one of those, that it makes it worse. And so you might be in either camp, and then you think, like, man, meditation, like I feel worse, and you keep trying to do it, and yeah, you feel worse, and other people feel better. So if you're in the camp where you feel good after you do it, that can be a great option. I know there are people on this call that do it, actually have told me. If you're in the camp where it makes you feel worse, what that can, you might do a modified version. And so essentially, like, let's say you've just had this internal chatter and you just need a break. What we might be looking for more so is like a pattern interrupt, because it can almost be sometimes this, it's like a snowball that you're rolling down a hill and it keeps collecting snow, and we want to stop that. We want to do a pattern interrupt. And so that's where meditation for you could be watching a show that you love, because it's a pattern interrupt. It could be a movie, it could be a song, it could be doing something fun. It doesn't have to be this Zen thing where you're, sitting and, working towards enlightenment. It could be something that, it could be diving into a special interest, because what we're really doing, if you have internal chatter that spirals or cycles, pulling yourself out might be the best thing. And you might need something really engaging, because if your brain's already understimulated and then you're sitting and quiet, you're also maybe taking yourself into, let me pull this up. Actually, I didn't plan on this, but actually this ties in pretty well, is hypoarousal. Hold on, let's see. So there's, let me see, just give me, so there's hypoarousal and then hyperarousal. I might just Google it, actually. And this is something that we can step into. And for some, if you do this in meditation, you're actually going to bring yourself down, and you're gonna dysregulate your brain. So let me see. Arousal. Okay, I'm going to get a good graphic up, because I know we asked for visuals last time, and so I want to get you a good visual so this makes sense. Okay, here we go. All right, I'm going to do a screen share right here, and I want to show you this right now. Okay, so this is, let's see if we can get this bigger here. So here's the hyperarousal versus hypoarousal. So this is what we call the window of tolerance. So right here, this is where we really want to be. And this is we're regulated, right? We're calm, we're grounded. Up here we have this hyperarousal, which you could look at as more like anxiety, like you can't calm down, you can't quiet your brain, you're overreactive, you're emotionally distressed. And so this is when we're too stimulated, we're overstimulated, the lights might feel brighter, you might feel irritable. And then we have hypoarousal that people don't talk about as much. And this is the opposite side. We're actually depressed, lethargic, we're numb, we're unmotivated, we feel like we can't move. And you can have repetitive thoughts in this one and this one. This might feel like there's gasoline on it. This might feel like it's just kind of attacking you a little bit, and you can't really get away from it, but it just might be over and over again, but it doesn't have gasoline poured on. So with ADHD, we can more easily jump into these. We can get overstimulated and we can get understimulated way more easily than someone who doesn't have ADHD. And so we're actually going to be regulating our systems more externally and manually than someone who doesn't have it. So for some, if your meditation isn't stimulating it enough, you might actually bring yourself down into hypoarousal, and this is why you might feel worse. Or if you have intrusive thoughts or repetitive thoughts, now you're just sitting in this, and now your thoughts are even worse. So this is what you want to look for. Whereas for some people, it brings them into here and it feels really good. So we don't want to go into hypoarousal. And for some people, it's like, oh, if I just get started, I'm good, then I'm good. And so it might be that you swing to both of these multiple times throughout the day. You could just go into this 1 hour and then now you're over here. And now you got too much anxiety and now you're bored, it's not uncommon. And so just being aware of what helps you is really helpful. So we'll include those in the notes there. But yeah, those are those two. So then also just one more on the meditation part. Let's see, how do I unshare? Okay. Oh, okay. Did I unshare? I don't know why must be the heat that's getting to me. Okay, here we go. There's the stop share. It was just covered up. Okay. So then what you can also do is walk, like some kind of movement. That can be a form of meditation. Video games, really, what can help with the chatter, because I think the point of meditation is to kind of slow your mind and kind of put your focus in one area and be really present. And so it might be that you sit with your dog. We haven't, like, any animal lovers here. I know we've got quite a few. And you just sit with your dog and you notice like how beautiful their eyes are and like how soft their fur is. And like you just tell them tell them positive affirmations. I do that for Bailey all the time, like just positive affirmations for her. And so when you're being super present with something, then that can sometimes calm that internal chatter. And it could be that you're driving. Some people really like to drive. It could be that you're listening to your music over and over again, and you're stimming in that sense. And or you could some other things. You could just have background music or sound, because a lot of this is about the awareness of like where things are coming from and being curious versus just judging yourself. And so you might be somebody that does better going to sleep with the TV on, and that's okay. It's not a terrible thing. You're not going to not be successful because you have the TV on when you go to sleep if you need that, you might put on background music. It's something to stimulate your brain. You might get fidget toys. So those are some more ways to calm that. Self-soothing, like getting in your body. It could be that you like take a bath, a hot bath, or you hold an ice pack in your hands, or you drink hot tea, or you like hug a loved one. Like certain things that get you in your body and out of your head is really helpful, because again, sometimes we can get more in our head. I don't know if I know I'm probably not the only one that gets really in your head. And so you want to move kind of from your head to your body and your heart. Helping somebody can really get you in that heart space. And so it could look like a lot of different things. It could be cooking dinner that you really enjoy cooking, and you smell and you got all the sensory stuff, and now you're calming it. So those are other ways that you can kind of calm down or just get a break from it, because like sometimes we just have it, and it's part of the makeup. And at the same time, we can use it for good too. Let's see. Okay. So some other things, therapy is good. Cognitive behavioral therapy, that helps. Focusing on sleep. If you have a lack of sleep, you can absolutely have more chatter, for sure. And at the same time, sometimes we can have sleep issues. And so you might make that your one thing, or your hyper focus for a week or two, and become the best sleeper there is, let's see, going outside, breathing, calling a friend, caffeine. If you're drinking caffeine, a lot of us can be like not sensitive at all to it, and we can just drink lots and lots of caffeine. Other people can be hypersensitive. So if you have one cup of coffee, you might have a panic attack, later the day, and that's just predictable. Or if you take stimulants, if you take those past a certain point in time where you have trouble sleeping, and then it throws off your sleep, that's something. Binaural beats. Has anybody tried that before? Binaural beats. It's like okay, we've got some, so you can look that up. Binaural beats are basically a way. It's they help kind of shape your brainwaves, and they can actually calm you down. There's ones that can calm down panic attacks, and it helps like link your brain up to like GABA waves and alpha waves. It's really cool. So you want like studio headphones, or just like good headphones. I think Apple AirPods could work too, and they're on YouTube for free. So just type in binaural beats and play with that. There's also some stuff they're coming up with that can actually calm ADHD mind that I'm looking into, and it's certain vibrations and sounds. And so there's a lot of different really cool options out there. Let's see. Okay. Write it down. If you're ruminating on thoughts, write that down. Let's see. Okay. And then let's say none of this worked. Let's say nothing calms it, and you're like, I've tried all these, it doesn't work. I still have intrusive thoughts. I've got internal chatter nonstop. I can't get away from it. Nothing's working. So this is where, and this is something I learned in OCD therapy. It's called radical acceptance. So because resistance, when you have stuff that's immovable or isn't going to change, it doesn't mean in the future it might not. The resistance sometimes can cause more pain. So and this could be like, let's say you didn't get moving on something, and it's just for now, so this could be for anything. It's just this radical acceptance, like, okay, this is how it is. because when you resist, then it can get a lot worse. So for example, like let's say depression, let's talk about that. So if you have depression and you have major depressive disorder, I was diagnosed when I was 10 with major depressive disorder. And it's like when you're like, man, I got to get happy. Okay, what's wrong? Come on, let's get happy. Come on, I got to do this. Oh my gosh, why am I sad again? Why am I struggling? Get happy. Come on, I'm trying everything. That panic and that anxiety can actually make things so much worse. But when you say, okay, like this is my baseline for now or today, it's okay, I accept it. What do I want to do moving forward? You're at least removing the anxiety and the suffering. And then you're just kind of floating in it and are existing in it. And it can actually ease up a lot sooner, a lot easier. And so same thing with like chatter, or I'm going to talk about intrusive thoughts, because I've had some ones that I thought I was going crazy. I mean, I had is it okay if I'm just like super transparent? I want to talk about this stuff. So I had self-harm intrusive thoughts. I've never done self-harm. I've never done that, but I had this repetitive thought over and over again of like self-harm, and it freaked me out, and I had no idea what it was. I thought I was going crazy. I really thought I was going crazy, and I was like, I don't want to not be here anymore. But why do I have this thought? It's not mine, And so I didn't know it was intrusive thoughts. I thought like that, like I mean, you come up with all kinds of stuff. It's like, is this the devil? Like, what is this? Until I got diagnosed with OCD. Thank God. And so then it made sense. And so this is the technique I learned in OCD therapy that anybody can use without OCD. Is that you kind of treat it like all my intrusive themes or my intrusive thoughts I saw as like these little kids on a bus, and I'm driving, and this little kid is going to be screaming, but I never let the kid drive, right? So they can sit there. I can look at them. I can say, hey, I see you. You can sit there. You can't drive. So I'm kind of watching it. I'm letting it exist. And what happened is it actually like took the power out of it. It like took the resistance out of it, where I don't have those anymore. And that's not always as common, but I don't have self-harm intrusive thoughts. I mean, maybe twice a year, but I know exactly what it is, so it doesn't upset me. I've had medical theme intrusive thoughts where I thought I was going to get an infection, and I would Google for 2-3 hours like a crazy person, seeing if I could get sepsis from a cut. Like I didn't know what it was. And that was after I got sepsis, and I thought I was going to die. So it turned on this theme. And so any little thing, if I got a bruise, it was like a extreme hypochondriac around medical stuff. And so it's like this little kid on the bus that's scared. And so I started looking at, instead of being like, oh, stop, or oh, stop, even intrusive thoughts that are mean, it's like hurt people. So it was like this little kid on the bus. I was like, I'm going to hold your hand, but I'm driving, and you can be there, and I'm going to care about you. I'm going to send you love, and you can be there all day if you want. You don't have to go away, but you're not driving. And so that actually took the power out of a lot of stuff. And so if there's nothing else you can do, if it won't go away, and you've tried everything, you could do that for a day. Just try radical acceptance until you can get more, and talk to somebody about it. If you have thoughts that feel scary or you're struggling, talk to somebody. It's amazing how much better it is once you actually tell somebody and they think you're not crazy, and then you don't suffer, that's, radical acceptance is a really wonderful thing. Also, the kids on the bus, if you have, so there's a therapy called internal family systems. So if you've been through trauma, there are parts, and this is common for a lot of us, there are little parts that kind of fragment a little bit, where you have like the little kid part of you, and you have the teenager part of you, and you have the infant part in these little parts. It's not split personalities, but it's called an internal family system. And so you might have certain parts of you that have a meltdown or overwhelm or say mean things. And so if you can kind of soothe them and let them sit on the bus as a kid on the bus, and exist there, and not say, oh, shut up, like, oh, you have a bad thought, stop it, that usually doesn't work. They're just going to come back. So it's like, just, letting them sit there. So that's what I have for the internal chatter. And just kind of sum it up, right? It can look different for everybody. It could be just this internal chatter that never stops. It could be distressing. It could be just your chemistry. It could be that there are some other things that you can address that can calm that. It could be medical, it could be another diagnosis. And how you calm it is going to look very different depending on who you are. You might do wonderful with meditation. It might not be your thing. You might love to journal. You might hate to journal. You might love baths. You might hate baths because you feel like you're in human soup. Someone said, I love baths, but somebody said they felt like they were in a pot of soup when they took a bath. I don't know. Like everybody's different, right? So it's just completely up to you. And it's more about that self-awareness and curiosity. Judgment, harshness, resistance, that is not going to move you forward. I will tell you right now. It's just going to make you suffer, and we don't want that. So